I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is All the Mods 10. Now, I'm back in the other, and I'm farming some of these enchanted books. Last episode, I ended up getting the enchantment library, and this makes the enchanted book grind so much easier just by popping in this dimension and collecting a ton of these enchanted books. There's so much good stuff on here, including like high-level fortunes, high-level stuff, and I can just simply toss it inside of my applied logistics system, and it automatically will take all enchanted books out and store them into that library. Now, this, of course, isn't the primary focus of today's episode. It's just one minor part. What I actually want to focus on today is upgrading our mystical agriculture setup. And this is going to be pretty interesting, right? So the way that I want to start handling our mystical agriculture is I want to have the item, the essence, essentially auto-crafted immediately into a product. So we don't end up with like a ton of essence for gold with no actual gold. I don't want my applied energy system to have to do those crafts all the time. And this is going to save us on a lot of things in the future. Also, by the way, there's just like blocks of diamond and netherite over here. What in the world? Now, before we get to all of that fun stuff, I do want to show you this. This is an enchantment extractor, and it's something that we actually got set up because of our industrial foregoing. And it's going to allow me to take items, for example, like this sword here, and I'm able to give this some books. So let me grab a few books, just like this. And I can place that in this barrel. I have it configured inside of the machine to pull the books in from the right side, to pull enchanted items in from this side. And what it's going to do is it's going to automatically extract the items like so. And it's going to pull off the enchants one at a time. The enchants are going here and are being auto-inserted into the library. And then our item, well, it's just getting sent to a trash can because I don't want those useless netherite gear pieces. But the enchants, oh yes, since we can stack those, it makes this incredibly powerful and also allows me to clean up my, well, applied energistic system a little bit. And after my little adventure, I have a ton of netherite gear pieces. So now things are about to get interesting, right? Because like I said, I want to start taking some of our important essences and I want to get them converted into their actual ingredient. For example, like gold. Like gold would be a really good one to, for example, have auto-converted, and iron, and many others. And while there are a few things that we can actually craft with this essence, I feel like for the most part, some stuff like this should be automatically converted. Now, as of right now, I only really have a few things: the gold, iron, osmium, things like steel, also emerald, uranium, basically our basic materials. And I want these to be auto-converted so when we scale up, we'll also have all of these converted directly into the resource. Basically avoiding needing to do all of these crafts within our applied energistic system. And later on, this is going to be really, really powerful, especially when we go to craft like our nether essence, right? And automatically make a ton of netherrack, or things that the All the Mods star, for example, requires, right? 6 times compressed netherrack. And we don't currently have RF Tools crafters, or at least I don't as of right now in this version. So what is our second best alternative? Well, believe it or not, I think that this could be done very quickly with Xycraft. And I know this sounds kind of crazy, but fabricators are honestly very, very powerful when done like so. So we could place in fabricators just like this, right? And if we have a inventory that is, for example, connected to this, you might be able to see where I'm going here, that is connected to these fabricators, the fabricators will automatically pull the ingredients out after we've defined them. So if I, for example, take a bit of essence here, I can go ahead and, for example, do like gold essence, right? And I define what it takes to craft the thing, just like so. And then I put this inside. It's going to get crafted incredibly quick. So I was thinking, instead of using the barrel, what if we use an interface from Applied Energistics? Then we could do up to 4 separate materials here. For this, we would just need some wireless connectors, like this, for example, switching it over into green. There we go. Now I have 2 separate connectors right here, which we can connect up like so, and power our interfaces from both sides. And I plan on doing this in the wall right here, and I think it's going to look really nice. So I just need to link this here. I've got some cables connected to this, and also link on the other side. Perfect. And all we have to do now is get our patterns set aside like this. I think this is going to be pretty darn cool. Now, I still have to worry about how do we get the items out of here. So now with all of these locations defined as well for all of these essences, we can actually start to set up our patterns for it. So all we have to do now is define these in their appropriate location. So I have all of these essences, and it's just going to be a drag situation. We're just going to drag it over just like so, and continue doing this for each one in each section. So we're gonna have 4 per, and this is gonna start to fill up. We gotta make sure though that this is set to like 64 for this, like so, 64 and 64. This is gonna keep in stock, and it's going to allow this just to continue crafting these items. And now with all of our locations defined, well, we just need to find a way to pipe these items back into the interface. And I want to do a certain kind of pipe from Mechanism, the logistics pipe, of course, just because I like seeing items move. Like, you don't have to use these, but it would be nice to be able to see the actual items flowing through. So using logistical transporters is going to make this possible. So it's going to get covered just like so. Ooh, oh, wow. Can the transporters not connect directly to the fabricator faces? Uh-oh. Now, because of this not being able to connect to the front, I decided to go ahead and connect it to the sides, which it does connect to the sides. And technically, I would love to have had these connect to the top, but unfortunately, it's not the case. Now, these are directional, so if I did rotate these, then that would work. I don't know if I can use a wrench on these to actually change their direction. Can I? Oh, I can. Okay. So that could potentially change this entire setup, right? So if I go ahead and break all of these cables, what I could do is just, rotate them so I don't have to change anything here. Now this bottom one is going to have to be rotated on its side like this, and then I can connect directly to the face. We just won't get this pretty little like indicator of what is in here. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this set up the way I actually wanted it, just like this. And this, like I said, will allow me to see those items in. They're not going to be coming in fast enough for this to be not able to keep up, but just like so, there we go. Those items will flow in. Those should flow in, and same here. And we can actually see this working, which is exactly what I wanted. So look at that. We can actually see the stuff crafting and working. And in my opinion, this is really fast. Like, this is not something to kind of laugh at. Like, this is crafting very, very quickly for something that is as cheap and as free as this fabricator is. And by the way, everything is just being dumped into our storage drawer. So this is why this is kind of important, having this set up, so that way we can scale this up and eventually void it if need be. I don't think we're going to hit that point, but this is, I mean, we can put netherite upgrades in here, and this scales this up exponentially. And so what's this whole setup actually do for me? Well, essentially, it's going to take a load off of our co-processing unit. So that way we don't have to have like constant request crafting happening for things like this in the future. Like, we'll just have it, and that's exactly what we want. So I've essentially converted our essence production now into producing the actual ingredient material. Now, what if I told you we could also use this setup to basically automate our inferium essence all the way up into supremium, or even taking it as far as insanium? Well, we 100% can. Now, this is going to be pretty interesting on how we're going to be able to actually handle this stuff. And I will tell you, this is going to require a little bit of logistics within Applied Energistics to, well, manage this whole setup. So now here's my logical thinking behind this. Now, I want to keep a certain amount of each tier block in stock. This is going to require a little bit of work to do, but each of these I'm going to need to keep in stock. That's kind of important, right? So to be able to do this, we're going to have level emitters basically disable the connection to this interface. And to do this, we can use something called a toggle bus. So a toggle bus has the ability to receive a redstone signal, and that toggle bus then will determine whether or not this is going to allow this device to be online or not. So as of right now, in the default toggle bus mode, whenever it receives a signal, it then will turn on the cable. So how do we actually determine what redstone signal to give this? That's where the level emitter actually comes into play. So I can place a level emitter off of another cable right here to give this a redstone signal. And thankfully, I can choose how this redstone signal is emitted. So it says emit when levels are above the limit. Now, if we invert this, emit when levels are below the limit, then we can make sure to only allow this to turn on based on that given logic. I know, big brain stuff, but I promise you it's not too bad. So now that I have my connectors connected, we can actually see the redstone signal. And by default, this is what it's set to: emit when levels are above or equal to limit. Now, right now we have nothing defined, but Inferium blocks is actually what I want to check. And this is going to allow me to keep a certain amount of Inferium blocks in stock because we're going to be shutting off this interface. So this is kind of important, right? So let's say I want to keep 128 blocks of Inferium in stock. By default, with the way that this is set up with our current buses, this is exactly what we want. We want to emit signals when the levels are above this amount. That way, the opposite of that is if it was to drop below 128 blocks, it will shut down the redstone signal. And that's what we want, because this toggle bus only works when it is receiving a signal. So in this case, if the 128 blocks were to drop out, if we were to run out of these and it goes all the way to that limit, this will then shut down, which is really, really important, by the way. So now with that knowledge, we essentially need to do the same thing for all other essences that we're going to be running. This is going to have 4 running over here, 4 running here, and so on and so forth. I don't know if we're ever going to be able to keep up with all of that, but it is something to note. This is going to be like 4 times the process happening right here. So ME toggle bus, just going to place that there. And like I said, this one is going to be working on Prudentium, and we don't have to change anything. We just set it to 128 and we're good to go. Notice, by the way, we have not reached that 128 limit on this emitter. So it would basically wait for this one to reach that threshold that we have set here. And once it goes above that, it will then allow this interface to work. And we simply keep moving on to 128 on this as well. And this will take us up to Supremium. So I can take up to Imperium on this one and 128, right? And then that's going to craft all the way up into Supremium. But now we've got to get some other stuff set up. So now we get to go through the process of defining each of these recipes. Now I'm going to use the Master Infusion Crystal, and we can actually drag from JEI to set these. And notice this right here is going to work, but there is a caveat. For the Master Infusion Crystal to work in this, we actually have to retain this Infusion Crystal over here. And that is where something important has to happen. When we output, we have to filter. And I actually have a plan for this. And that plan is actually going to involve something that you've probably never thought about: filtering items being dropped into the world and then collecting them. That's right, not using pipes at all. And believe it or not, Industrial Foregoing has us covered here, because each one of these world transporters can dump items into the world. Notice it just dumped my infusion crystal out of here into the world. But they also have a filter. So by default, I can just place that in here, and now it will no longer try to dump that into the world. Pretty cool, right? So how does this actually work? Well, if I'm going to be dumping the products that are in this chest, except for the infusion crystal, I need a way to then pick it up immediately. And that's where, just by simply placing down an item collector and lowering the area a little bit, we can actually pull all of the items that are dropped right out and instantly insert it right into our ME interface. And now I think the only thing we need to do is go ahead and place in the Inferium blocks. And if we keep 16 in stock, notice, by the way, it is going to be crafting here. And it is crafting all of these. They are all depositing. Some of them you can't actually see. It doesn't look like you can see this one working, but you can definitely see it is working in here. But look, it is placing them in world, automatically being collected and dumping right into the interface. And we should start to see the Prudentium blocks now increasing, which means we then need to take the Prudentium over here, and we need to also define 16 in this one. And as soon as that's done, we should start to see the Prudentium autocrafting, or so you hope. Aha, you just got to make sure that the toggle bus actually went onto the appropriate side of the actual cable here. It needs to go on this side of the cable. And there we go. Now the device is online, and that is starting to craft. Yeah, it looks like I'm going to have to fix all of these because they are, like I said, on the wrong side of the cable. But now, there we go. Now they'll be on the correct side. And all of this is going to be increasing. You can see right here, we now have these blocks. And yes, this as well. We put that in there. That one's going to start off, and this is going to start going pretty fast. You can see how quickly this is going to increase. And thankfully, we only really need to worry about storing Supremium blocks. And that's all going to happen right here as soon as I put this in. There we go. And we should start to see the production of Supremium blocks happening very, very soon. And you can already notice this level emitter working, by the way. Notice we haven't reached that threshold, but as soon as we do, this is going to turn on. It's actually getting very close to actually reaching that threshold. You can see right here, it's at 126, so close. And as soon as it hits that threshold, 130, it's emitted. There we go. And we're going to notice these toggling on and off as we continue this operation. And just like that, I now have my first Supremium blocks. And for this, we're just going to simply store that, like I said, inside of one of our drawers. And this, my friends, has got to be one of the coolest ways I have ever automated the mystical agriculture essence. I don't think I've ever done it this cool before. Really nice when you're kind of limited, right? I would have probably just gone ahead and used RF Tools Crafters, but no, this right here, very, very cool. Now that we have that done, we can go ahead and actually remove the patterns for all of our essence crafts. And this is going to be important because from this point, we're now going to want to downcraft from the blocks, in which it already looks like we have those patterns ready to go, like the downcrafting from the blocks. Perfect. Now keep in mind this same logic that we basically used to keep these in stock, we could also use to keep a certain amount of essence in stock at any given moment. So just keep that in mind. This would be a way for us to have a lot of other things sort of automated in this way, where we can also, like I said, keep like, I don't know, ice essence in stock. And like ice would be a really good one, right? So that way we can make, for example, packed ice, or we could have both packed ice, snow, and ice all being produced all from the same thing. Because there's just some essences that you do just want to keep them in essence form. It's just going to make life a little bit easier down the road, especially when there's like multiple things that are being crafted from it. Now, while I was working on this little project, I was actually informed by Soren himself that the collector is a better option. And that's because it prevents it from being entities when they're dropped in the world and immediately collects them, apparently, which is honestly kind of cool. So instead, we can use this collector. Now, I know that it is actually collecting items from over here, I do believe. But I technically want to see, is the closest one going to work? So I've made a couple of them. And whenever you place them in, yes. Okay, so they will work within each other's range. Now, apparently the left side is a filter, the middle is the buffer, and then the far right side is it being transferred out. So these are auto sending, which is a nice alternative, by the way, to these item collectors, and will probably help with lag, especially if you're playing on a server, for example. And yeah, it is also just click and play. Now, you know what? I feel like today's episode was jam-packed full of a ton of information. And so that way you can process all of this information, I think it's going to be a bit of a shorter episode today. And hopefully that's not a huge deal. But I hope you did enjoy today's episode. Hopefully you learned something new about any of these operations. The Xycraft Fabricator is absolutely fantastic for doing crafts like I just set up today. So if it is something you enjoyed, be sure to click that subscribe button. And of course, don't forget to give this video a huge thumbs up. And also comment down below, what's your thoughts on this whole setup? And are you going to use it in your own world? I would love to know. And guys, it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that huge thanks is going to go out to Cold Lasagna. Hopefully your lasagna gets warm soon. But thank you so much for your amazing support and choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. Of course, I look forward, guys, to seeing you in the next one. And you know how it goes. As always, thanks for watching.